Hey guys, welcome back to Ratchet Builds. So today's video is going to be about my trip to Tennessee visiting the RRW Krawl Zone. This is the first crawling course that I've ever actually went to. My mother and my wife went with me to crawl as well. As I've alluded to in other videos, I built my wife a little WPL yellow truck that I also did upgrades on this channel with, just for this trip. And my biggest fear is the whole reason of doing that was not to have a failure, and I had exactly that, a failure, which actually threw us into using the Everest 10. My mother, I did build her another little WPL red truck, completely 100% stock. I don't think I made a video about that or posted it or anything, but I just built her a little basic crawler because she is very new to crawling. Let's get into this video and let's go over these courses, and I'll just tell you where our difficulties were and where I had issues and where I plan on upgrading some of the rigs. On the first part of this course, we started off on like an angled incline. This is a very hilly area and mountainous, of course. It was quite muddy, still very damp, lots of leaves on the ground. There were some roots that were sticking and protruding out of the ground. So the first little bit was just getting used to like crawling over this environment, just getting a little bit mud worked onto the tires, and just seeing where everybody's at, just to get an understanding on what we're doing, since this is the first time that, for one, all of us went crawling onto a course. For two, this is the first time we've all did it together. And three, also me trying to figure out how I was going to video record any of this. So this little intro is just like showing all three of the vehicles right in the beginning, and just a short little snippet of that. So right here, we're coming up to our first obstacle that we have. It's just a nice little bridge that you actually got to go out on, and then you got to make a sharp little turn. So the first one up is going to be the Gen7. It's just going to slowly come out there, kind of back up a few times just to make the turn. Then we're just going to head it on back up, and then next is going to be my wife's turn. And I don't believe the red WPL actually went on this course. Yeah, that's right. The red one actually, that was my mother. She decided to take a little bit higher ground because of the roots and that stock WPL. She went up a little bit higher and then came back down to us, and she got stuck on some roots, and I tried to give her a little bit of push on it, but just wound up driving around anyways. And then my wife decided to take her WPL out on the little bridge that goes out over the creek, and then the sharp turn, and it does absolutely wonderful. Comes up the ramp. She does have a slight issue of straddling the boards coming up, but did perfectly fine. Made it to the other side. Didn't drop it into the water or flip or anything like that. Nothing eventful in that part. Alright, you're gonna have to back up. Turn your wheel to your right. Easy, easy. Alright. Alright, keep it straight like that. Turn to your left a little bit. Come on. Should be good. After we went out on the little bridge, next course that we had coming up was actually crossing the little creek that was running through this course. There was an option to crawl over a log. Unfortunately, my rig was a little bit too wide, and I kept bottoming out on the axles. Maybe if I had portals on it or something like that, I could have kept my tires straddled on this log and made it across, but instead there were some nice little rocks, real easy climb, going right through the creek itself. You'll also notice here that this is when we switched up and the WPL yellow one is no longer seen, the one that I spent so much time and effort on upgrading. Very short into this trip, it stripped out one of the gears climbing some of the hills and routes that we did before. It's actually the main gear on the motor. It's just spinning there. So when the motor spins, it spins inside of it. If you hold the tires straight, it will go. But if you have them turn in any kind of direction, then it just sits there and stays idle. So I wound up having to actually run back to the car. Luckily, I did bring a backup for my wife, which was the Everest 10, which is a great little vehicle. It's got a lot of flex to it. You can just about just brute yourself over anything or any obstacle. So after I get done crossing the creek here, I did have to have a little bit of a hard time lining up the tires. And my wife decided to go next with the Everest 10, cross the creek, just glides right through it. Didn't get hung up on the rocks near like what I did. That thing's got so much clearance and flex, it just floats over the rocks, really. So I did decide to take control of my mother's car. She was actually stuck on the log, and I recentered it, reset, and I just kind of eased my way across it to the other side, just to have a little bit of a shot of what the stock WPL can do. Now we've come to the other side of the river where we're actually getting into a little bit more difficult courses. There's a small little bridge on the entrance here. Gen7 just goes ahead and glides right across that. My mother decides to take the WPL across it, which on the bridge they've got boards on either side. There's a gap in the center, so she actually had to keep the truck all the way to the far right on the bridge because it was just wide enough for her to go, but did have some issues of actually running into the bridge itself as going across it, so she had to back up and readjust a couple of times. And of course my wife with the Everest 10 just kind of brutes her way through it. She kind of falls off into the hole and then just goes, and yeah, just it's so big that it just can't fall all the way through.
She's just going to try to brute her way right through this. No finesse whatsoever, just straight brooding through the bridge.
Next up is the cable course. So I was kind of excited about this because it's basically a balancing bridge with cables. So you have to have your tires on the cables just right to go up it, which the Gen7 was just at the perfect width that I could put the cables in the center. Except my weight of my vehicle, I felt like gave me a disadvantage of it because it made the cable sink so hard and it just got so wobbly so quickly. When I started to actually get on the cables, I didn't make it I wouldn't even say a decent distance. I made it a little bit into it and it just lost grip one time and boom, straight to the ground. And all that weight, I decided to not try anymore on that because I didn't want to break my rig, or right at the beginning of like this adventure that we were taking on this course, which we spent like a couple of hours even riding on this course. But I just didn't want to take the risk of breaking it and then like not being able to shoot any more video because I already had one rig down. My backup was already being used. So my mother and my wife decided to skip and move on to the next course, which was actually a cool little course. So they had it rigged up between 3 trees, 2 suspension bridges, a hard bridge, and a nice little sharp incline coming up on it. The only issues that we did have with that would really be lack of experience of driving. and also the rocks are right in the beginning, actually crawling up to it. So on the rocks, I tried my rig and also my wife's rig. We just kept having issues with flipping off of it. So I'll probably cut most of that out. So on this course, we did spend a lot of time. I had to reset the cars many of times into positions to try to get all the way through it. I plan on giving some of these cars a little bit better turn radius. That seemed to be our biggest downfall.
There we go.
Is this we couldn't turn them sharp enough to get around these corners. So first up was my wife with the Everest 10. We had a couple of fails there. You'll see me catch it and also pick it back up and put it back on. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the performance of it. It made it across pretty well. The next one that decided to go was the next person to go on the course was my mother. She had already just skipped the rocks in the beginning, put it on the incline, drove up it, so I didn't catch that footage. I did catch my mother coming down the first bridge with the red WPL.
What truck is doing? You're probably gonna need a hand to God. There you go.
A little bit of a difficult time here of getting across it, and she does kind of yeet the truck off the side. I'm guessing that a confusion of reverse and forwards, and accidentally hit the trigger while moving, and it just off. Pretty nasty crack. It's a pretty high, like almost chest high fall that it took, but nothing's broken on it that I can tell. Everything's still functional. So she did get to finish the rest of the day with that. And then finally, the last one to do this course was actually my rig with the Gen7. So the Gen7 did pretty well at the climbing part of this, but once again, my weight on the suspension bridge, it kind of buckled the bridge. That made it hard to actually get up off the bridge and onto the platform. And also, I'm not proficient with my four-wheel steering yet.
Yeah.
So that also gave me a little bit of hindrance on trying to make it around some of the sharp turns.
Well, I guess I need a new body now. Oh man. Oh. You know what? Alright, I'm gonna try it. Fuck it, I already screwed the body. Nope, 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 nope. Alright. Ooh. I need a lighter rig for this type of crawling. Oh, fine.
So next obstacle was going to be the fire hose bridge. So all it is, two straps of fire hose that's been stretched out. It gets up like over your head, so you're actually kind of like looking up while trying to control the car. It was a pretty fun. I would say the Everest 10 probably did it best. The only issue that we have there is on the first incline, it kind of slips and then it wants to ease off the side because one strap is kind of lower than the other one. So you're kind of going up this thing kind of crooked. But we did make it up. I found with a little bit of extra speed coming up the inclines that you could jump them a little bit easier and come down the other side. Though at the end, we did have a fall. I didn't line up because I was actually behind the car and didn't go to the other side. And my tires got unaligned and I did roll it. The next one up is, of course, again, my mother with a WPL, completely 100% stock. I don't know how many times I've reiterated that at this point, but I guess I'll stop at this point. But she tries to take the course. A WPL is just not quite wide enough to be able to do this course. And so it winds up getting hung up, sliding down. Almost had a scare of dropping it or letting it fall once again, but luckily it just got hung up.
Bunny hops gets it. There you go for a little bitty fella. And a big. Oh! Lost traction.
The last one was the Gen7, and the Gen7 did good at the climbing proportion on the hoses. I believe we still got hung up at the very first entry, first incline, because once again, like I said, one hose was kind of lower than the other, so whenever mine got up there, it would spin and then slide. Just need a little bit better, grippier tires, I do believe. I'm running the stock tires that come on it. They do great for like the rock crawling that I do out here at my house, the mud I've got also out there on the clay. But for sharp inclines and stuff like this, definitely need a little bit more grippier of a tire to actually grab on to keep it a little bit more stable. And once again, these suspension bridges seem to be a downfall with the heavy weight. I could be wrong about this because once again, I am new to the crawling experience. But show y'all just a few little clip, just a little bit of the Gen7 actually going on here. So we do have two falls, one right in the beginning, like I just told you, and then also I have a secondary fall at the end. After the secondary fall, as you can see, it kind of ruined my body. I had already cracked it previously that day on one of the first courses. It wasn't bad. It was something like I could shoe glue, you know, tape the inside, and it'd be perfectly fine. But the second and third hit just demolished it. I've already gotten a new body. If you've already watched my other video of the haul run that I got from whenever I took my trip to Tennessee, you've already seen the new body. So I will be having a video on that soon. We're going to be fitting the new body, and also we'll be doing some repairs to it, which we're going to be looking at what we broke at towards the end of this video. So our next course that we had, so this was just a simple little rock course that they had set up. It was not hard, something that was more set up for our skill set. And realistically, what we should have stayed more to and instead of trying to do the more difficult ones that we weren't ready for yet. So it was just a nice little hill climb of dirt mound, and then you had a rock bed that you come across. So here's clips of, I believe, only the Everest 10 and the Gen 7 did this course. The WPL, once again, it's just not quite strong enough in the stock form to do this type of trail.
She finished. This is going to have to come off.
So once we were done with that trail, my mother decided to take the WPL, at least run it through these rocks. Here's a nice little shot of it. And there was one more course towards the end, and I'm not sure if we caught all of them, but I know this one I skipped and we just all decided not to do it. It was a pretty difficult course, and I knew none of my rigs were going to be able to accomplish it. So we did skip it. Unfortunately, I didn't take any kind of pictures for it or anything like that. My experience at the RRW Krawl Zone was a fun one. I definitely enjoyed it. The people were very nice that we talked to that ran the place. Had a nice little hobby store there on site for tires, bodies. They actually had a few crawlers you could buy right there. Nice little setup, decent pricing to it. I very much enjoyed the course. There's definitely, like I said, a few more courses that we could have done. Some of them I didn't know about, and one of them that we just skipped altogether because I knew none of our rigs were going to make it. But thank y'all for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments about it, please leave me a comment. Until then, I'll catch y'all next time. Thank you, and be safe out there.